Net detriment. I don't know.
What?
All right,
Okay,
each go.
first of all-
Grace, speak. Yeah.
He sounds so sad. Come on, you can do it.
Maybe it's like, how do you use like paper?
Okay, is everyone ready? Yeah. Time begins now. We strongly affirm the resolution that the right to be forgotten ought to be upheld. Now, as a brief roadmap for my speech, I'll be first going over definitions and then framework, then moving on to the case of the affirmative team. So we start with the right to be forgotten. We define this as, and this comes from the European Union's own website, whether an individual has a right to request that their personal data is removed from a search engine, like the accessibility of searching up their name or something related to them from a search engine, for example, Google. And then so upheld is followed. So we'll go on to our value, which is societal welfare. Our value criterion is utilitarianism, which is defined as the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. And we'll take on a brief overview of why exactly this even matters. So in 1998, there was this whole situation in which this Spanish lawyer, and his name was Mario Costeja, and apparently there was a newspaper called La Vanguardia, and this was a Spanish newspaper. So what happened is he was a lawyer, and they published these notices about how he was going to have an auction to pay off his debt. And then later on, anyone could actually search up his name on a Google engine. So he went to the Spanish Data Protection Agency and asked them to take it away, like take his name off from there. But they didn't say that. And eventually, on the second turn, they did. So that's exactly what one of the cases that shows about the right to be forgotten, which means that really people would not be able to search you or see something particular on a search engine. So our first contention deals with that. One, we can't control exactly who posts or what they post. Example, exaggerated truth. If we take the case or the class cases of people who do cyberbullying or something, you're not the one who's posting that usually. It's someone else who's posting it. So if someone posts something about you that's false, then really people can see that. And as we know in our growing age and technology, people do use search engines a lot. For example, if someone who was born a really long time ago probably might have been reading newspapers, which apparently people don't do now. So really, if they were doing that, then maybe they would have a right to be forgotten, or people wouldn't remember that as much. But as we know in this cyberspace, anyone can search up anything, and it will stay there forever. So if some mistake that someone else makes, or some mistake that you make, will be staying there in that cyberspace and that network forever. So really, whether it's false or true, sometimes bad information can be posted on there, which means that it stays there, which means that this is not good for these people because it can be affecting. How can it be affecting? Well, jobs. For example, if there's something bad about you, like maybe you were convicted or wrongly convicted of something, or someone just said, oh, she was convicted of something, then it can be bad. Or if they posted something bad about you, then it can be bad for your employees. Your employers will see this. Actually, it's actually been shown that apparently colleges and universities do have to search up your name or look at a social network profile of you. And if someone has posted something bad about you, or it's still there, then really, as you can see, this would be harming your own life. This would be harming you. So if we give the right to be forgotten, or if we uphold the right to be forgotten, then this is fair to these people. This is unfairness that is actually happening. For the bad information is there. Imagine something was wrongly posted, something was wrongly there, just in the internet, and anyone can search this up due to the accessibility and the growing age of new technology that's being invented. So really this can really be bad for you in many times. Our second contention deals with that of constitutionality. What exactly we do have to say for this is about the Fifth Amendment, and so we have to uphold this Fifth Amendment, which states there are privileges against self-incrimination, which provides protection for the privacy of personal information. I'll take your question later if I have time. And there's also a Supreme Court case called Griswold versus Connecticut, which ruled that the Constitution protected the right to privacy, and this was a late 1960s case that actually happened. So we can see there are these two examples. And why must we uphold the Constitution? Well, it's a document of the country. It's our own country, and we have to be upholding this. true that the European Union has actually instilled this policy, but why we're saying that just overall. Like we can see in the United States, the Constitution actually states this, the Fifth Amendment, that people should have the right to privacy. It actually does state that no one is held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, with other suggestions, but really it shows that people should have right to privacy and should not be convicted for these things. So as you can see, really, this is what you're upholding. We're upholding the Constitution. Now, I'd just like to strengthen my point even further. What exactly we're saying in our first point is that about how bad information can be bad. Now, I'll take a question later if I have time. How does this even connect to authoritarianism? Well, if you think about it, this technology or search engines or really just everything that's going on here is growing. And people have more accessibility and more things. In fact, we have one statistic actually that over 50%, more than half of adolescents are being bullied. And approximately 1/3 of adolescents are given false information. And these come from bullyingstatistics.org. But what we have to see from this is that people are being bullied, which is part of our first contention about how this can be bad information, bullying, that sort, which can actually affect them in the long run. Like we said about how colleges can actually do this, I'll take your question later if I have time, can be searching up your name and seeing things that would actually be affecting you later on in your life. And so if you were to get a job and your employer searched up your name and something bad or wrong that was affiliated with your name came there, what would happen to you? Well, obviously, if they didn't hire you just because of that information, well, as you can see, that's why the right to be forgotten comes into place. And our second contention just dealt with that about constitutionality, about the Fifth Amendment, about the Supreme Court case, which we mentioned before, about how really we have to be upholding the own things of our country. So as you can see, it is important to uphold the right to be forgotten. We explained about the case that happened in Europe. We explained our two contentions and about why this exactly matters. So for all these reasons, for that it would be helpful in the future and that it upholds constitutionality, I strongly urge an affirmative vote. Thank you.
Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm going to begin with my time. I'd like to briefly thank everyone in the room for making this debate possible. And with that, I strongly negate today's resolution that the right to be forgotten should be upheld. I'll begin by first going over my opponent's points and then moving on to my own. My opponent's first contention was that because we can't control who posts what online, we should have the right to delete it. And they reference both cyberbullying and that a mistake could last forever, regardless of who commits it. I'll begin by addressing the first subpoint on cyberbullying. But what I fail to see is how cyberbullying really connects to today's resolution. For those of you not in the know, there are 7 different types of cyberbullying, and most of them are private. Most of them happen over chat rooms, text messaging, or even just straight up exclusion. This would not be affected in any way, shape, or form by the right to be forgotten. Furthermore, even if someone was spreading information about you online, which many adolescents rarely do, as my provided no statistics say how many people were even affected by this in the first place, then how on earth would a teenager's blog post that smears someone's reputation affect you later in life in a job hunt? Because if you look at the age of a post and you look at the content it has, would an employer really take some teenager's blog spot, oh, so-and-so is such a slut, seriously? If you were an employer, Judge, would you take that as, we will ignore their credentials, we will ignore their GPA, we will ignore their interview, and instead focus on this one blog post that has no real meaning in the long run? Because the right to be forgotten obviously doesn't affect if a teen is bullied or not, and it doesn't affect the impact, then the subpoint is irrelevant. I'll move on to the second part of our contention, that a mistake could last forever. But why is this different from in real life? It's just an aspect of management of yourself. Let's say I make a mistake and it spreads in industry, whatever industry I'm working in. I don't get the right to be forgotten in real life. I can't tell people, wait, Nick, no, it's a do-over, it's a mulligan, this doesn't count. You can't do that in real life. My opponents have provided no real reason why the internet is any different. By not posting your mistakes online, and high schools do their best to inform their students of this, as proved by Notre Dame's required reading of LOL, OMG, a guide for teens on how to keep their internet reputation shiny. Yes, I'll take your question.
Are you aware that just reading books doesn't necessarily guarantee an impact on the kids these days?
So you're saying that a school making a book required reading and informing the kids about the risks that they're going to take, letting them know what not to do, it's going to have no impact at all? The resources are there, and like I said, this is simply another aspect that you need to manage. And if schools are giving the kids the tools to manage it and the know-how to know why they should, then I'd be able to see exactly how that isn't helping the kids. So I'll move on to the second contention on constitutionality, that the Fifth Amendment says that the right to speech abroad should be a thing. I would like to first point out that this is an EU law that's being debated right now, not a US law, and it's ridiculous to think that the American Constitution should have any bearing on the morality of the rest of the world. By opponents forcing their own worldview onto that of the rest of the world seems incredibly Americentric and completely unfair to the rest of the world, for one, but two, the fact that the internet is a pretty international thing, and again, you should not be forcing your own values onto it. And again, this link is really tenuous. The right not to self-incriminate yourself and the right to be forgotten are completely different. And in many cases, they've already been convicted of the crime, so that seems even more tenuous. There's no real link between the right not to incriminate yourself in a court trial and the right not to blame yourself in anything for the rest of your life. Again, in real life, if you make a mistake, you can't say, everybody, let's forget about it. And there's absolutely no reason, and my points are right or none, why this should be different on the internet. I'll go on to my own independent conventions now. The first one is for the safety of everybody. Because the thing is, when you can let the entire world forget what you've done, when you erase it, what you're doing is opening the door for pedophiles, terrorists, and criminals, actual real-life criminals, to have completely block access to their history. Sajid Javid, British Culture Secretary and Authority on Media, says that if they cannot be found by search engines, they might as well not exist at all on the internet. When 60% of traffic on any given website comes from Google, according to The Guardian, that means that what's coming from Google is extraordinarily difficult to find. What does this mean? Sajid continues to say that criminals are having their convictions airbrushed in history, and terrorists have ordered Google to cover up stories about their trials. If you do not have the ability to know if there is a pedophile living next door to you, if you don't have the ability to know if your child is in danger, then that is a serious problem. If you don't have the ability to protect your family, that is a serious problem. And no lawyer who wants to cover up his debts in the past should outweigh that. And my second contention is in public interest. Because the thing is, private companies like Google are the ones deciding this. And Javida also says that unelected judges created censorship by the back door. The public has no control at all what gets deleted and what's not. It's all the discretion of these private individuals. What does this mean? This means that in 2014, it says Sajid Javid, it is little more than an excuse for lawyers to hide the shady past of wealthy businessmen. That people are being allowed to do so in the name of human rights shows how far the idea has drifted. Because Google has accepted 42% of the hundreds of thousands of requests it receives, according to the company itself, it's clear that so much information is being blocked from the public's view without anybody's opinion other than whichever person decided to arbitrarily allow it or block it. And for that reason, it's clear that it's in the interest of everyone that the right to be forgotten should not be upheld.
Three main things you want. So like say if you had evidence to make guarantees, if they dropped something, connecting to the value and the criterion, overall big issues, right? And connect all your points into that.
Time begins now. As the member of the affirmative team, I again strongly affirm the resolution that the right to be forgotten ought to be upheld. As a brief roadmap for this speech, I'll first be going over the affirmative case, then the negation case. So our first contention was that because we can't control who posts what on the internet, and that harmful things could be posted about us, we should have the right to be able to block harmful and untrue things that are posted about us to improve our futures and to make our lives better. Now we gave the example of cyberbullying and how people can post mean and horrible things about each other online. And these things, because nothing on the internet is private and nothing can be forgotten really on the internet as it stands right now, people can look at things that happen with cyberbullying forever. Now, in refutation, our opponents asked, how does cyberbullying connect? They said that the internet, that teenagers are not actually posting private things about each other in real life. However, yeah.
Are you aware that I did not actually say that? I merely stated the well-known fact there are 7 different types of cyberbullying, most of which are private.
Now, as I was going to go on to say, nothing on the internet is truly private. Now, anything can really be viewed by anyone on the internet. Even if it's not necessarily in the public domain, officials can still go deeper and look into anything that is posted on the internet, even anything that's sent in a supposedly private manner, such as online chats. I'll take your question at the end if I have time. Such as online chats, email, any of these supposedly private methods. Again, they said that we provided no statistics. However, we have clearly stated that over 50% of adolescents have experienced or are experiencing cyberbullying in their life. My opponents asked, how would a blog post affect you in later life? Would employers really look at this? However, it is as my partner stated, it is now common practice for colleges to look at what you have posted on your social media or anything. They do a quick Google search of your name, and they can see anything that you have done on the internet. This is called your digital footprint. Now, this can affect your chances of getting into college, and then later on in life, this is a cycle. It can affect your entire life. Anything you do on the internet can affect your entire life because your college education can affect your later employment, and even employers do, in fact, search your name and look at your internet results. Now, my opponent also said that you don't get the right to be forgotten in real life. However, in real life, things are simpler. People's memories are short. We don't remember anything. It's easier to control what gets said, I'll take your question at the end if I have time. It's easier to control what gets said about you where, in print. However, on the internet, literally anything can be shared anywhere without permission and without knowledge of whom it's being shared about. And again, this also lasts forever. There are greater and stronger effects. Things are magnified online. And so the right to be forgotten is clearly important in helping these people's lives. Next, we talked about constitutionality and the Fifth Amendment. Now, my opponents only refuted this by saying it's very Americentric to just talk about America. However, there is no overall law or overall ruling body of the entire world. Individual governments need to talk about this, and in this case, we're talking about the American government. We are a major, yes?
Are you aware that you never stated in your framework that this was America, and secondly, this law is actually up for consideration in the European Union?
Okay,
and
well,
it's more topical.
Okay, well, how does it make, again, as I said, there's no overall ruling body of the entire world. How are we supposed to debate this if we can't talk about individual laws in different countries? In which case, we're talking here about the individual laws of America, not necessarily that this would just be affecting America's. But again, America is a major influence in the world, and our decisions and our laws affect the laws of other places. And if we are upholding the right to be forgotten, which as we have clearly stated is beneficial to everyone, then that can be a great influence upon the world. Now I'll be going on to refute my opponent's contentions. They discussed the safety of everyone, how this might leave an opening for criminals or terrorists or other such people to have information about them blocked. However, I would just like to say a far greater percent of our population is not criminals than criminals. Yes?
Would you say then that criminals should not be a concern of parents anywhere, ever?
I did not say this. However, there is no guarantee that criminals could be completely erased from the minds and knowledge of anyone. There are still print sources that discuss and other sources that discuss criminals. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee that this would actually protect criminals. And again, more people are not criminals than criminals, and it is more important that people's futures and that people's futures are improved by the right to be forgotten, and that we are upholding the Constitution by doing this, than just quote unquote protecting a small number of criminals. Now, they also discussed public interest and how it's actually better for public interest that the right to be forgotten is not upheld. Now, this point was somewhat vague, but I would say that it is also in great public interest for the right to be forgotten to be upheld, for the reasons we have stated. How many people's lives are affected by what gets posted on the internet? The entire public, everyone is affected by the internet. If we can block harmful things that are, I'll take your question at the end if I have time. If we can block harmful things that are posted about us on the internet, then that is in greater public interest than just the small amount that they talked about. Again, if this is put into place, it will help and it will serve everyone, and everyone will have the right to be forgotten. Which again, for the reasons we have stated, upholds our value of societal welfare. We are improving our society by protecting people's futures through allowing them to block harmful things that are posted about them. We are upholding our American values by allowing the right to privacy, again, as many Supreme Court cases have upheld. And for these reasons, I again strongly affirm the resolution and urge an affirmative vote.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and outline and pass it to you.
Time starts. We strongly engage the resolution that the right to be forgotten ought to be upheld. So first we'll start by refuting our opponent's contentions and moving on to our own. So our opponent's first contention was that we cannot control who posts anyone. They can search, and also mistakes will be there forever, and also cyberbullying is a problem. So, like if they post something like that's wrong about you, you could find them, like search them up on the internet. Our refutation to their cyberbullying subpoint is that most of cyberbullying actually is private, and it happens in chat rooms.
Can you clarify how exactly most of these 7 different types of cyberbullying are private per se?
Okay, flaming harassment, stalking, and impersonation.
What?
Flaming harassment, stalking, and impersonation. Also, and our refutation to their second subpoint, mistakes last, is that the most truly private online. And this is actually good for the chat rooms because then the culprits cannot escape, and it's better for victims. So then you can find out who said what, and you can like find you can find out who said what and find the culprit of the whole issue. Their second contention is constitutionality, and they said that everyone has a right to privacy. Okay, so basically Monica Lewinsky is well known for having an affair with Bill Clinton, and this is before it went on the internet. And then that went on the internet, and everybody still remembers her today, even though she wasn't on the internet. So that's just how good your memory is. Also, our opponents say that European Union laws, not U.S., and if they are already criminalized, the info is just an addition. Also, if everybody is accessing the internet, then everybody should have a voice in what goes on what is on. Okay.
Can you just repeat what you just said?
Oh, if everyone is accessing the internet, then everybody should have a voice on what goes on the internet. Our opponents also contradicted themselves by saying that there are still print sources, and then they said that this would not guarantee there's no guarantee that this would protect people. So this is a contradiction. Now we move on to our yes.
Can you clarify exactly how this is a contradiction?
The evidence still exists, so benefit is gone. Now moving on to our own contention. Our first contention is the safety of everybody. So this is like by having the right to be forgotten, basically you're letting pedophiles, terrorists, and criminals escape. Also, criminals are having their victims airbrushed from history, or victim records airbrushed from history, and Sajid David said that if they cannot be found by search engines, they may as well not be there at all. Also, terrorists have ordered Google to cover up stories about their trials, and criminals are our second contention is that in public interest. So private companies Google accepted 42% of hundreds of thousands of requests to take down information from people off of the internet. And also in Okay. Companies without morals have also been able to block out their competitors' links. And the same British Culture Secretary said that in 2014 it is little more than an excuse for lawyers to hide shady posts of wealthy businessmen, that people are being allowed to do so in the name of human rights shows how far the ideas have drifted. So, yeah. So I strongly negate the solution.
So I strongly negate today's resolution that the right to be forgotten should be upheld. So in this speech, I want to go over the voting issues, or why the negation side has clearly won today's debate. The first reason why the negation side has won is over-connecting to the criterion of utilitarianism. Through all of our points, we've managed to prove that the right to be forgotten is negatively affecting more people. Our first contention, which my partner was able to defend, is that is the right to safety. With pedophiles, terrorists, and criminals being able to affect anyone at any time, with the right to privacy in place, with the right to be forgotten in place, as I mentioned in my speech, as my partner reiterated in hers, these people can affect anyone's life. And with this being able to touch anyone's life, with the right to be forgotten, then it's clear that we won on that point. And again, as we look through all the points, public interest, as my opponents themselves conceded, everyone is on the internet. So obviously, public interest, the interest of everyone who is on the internet, connects more strongly to utilitarianism, the greatest benefit for the greatest amount of people. In my opponent's case, their first contention being that we can't control who posts what, it only affects cyberbullying victims and the small percentage of who had this information public. And again, as they said themselves, and as I'll touch on later in my speech, these people aren't even protected by the right to be forgotten in any way, shape, or form. And of course, constitutionality only really affects Americans, and they should not be affected by the right to be forgotten, seeing as this is a European issue, something they've repeatedly failed to grasp. Which provides a nice segue to my second contention, that we have won on evidence and being correct in today's debate. As my partner and I have said time and again, this is a law that's being discussed by the European Union, not America, despite what my opponents may say. And because, this is from The Guardian, as I mentioned in my first speech. So because we have actual evidence proving that we're right, and as I'll go through all of our points again, that we have evidence on our side and they do not, it's clear that we've won this debate. But let's look at our first point of safety. We've been able to prove, using the expert of Sajid Javid, who is the British Secretary of State for Culture, and which includes media, so he obviously knows what he's talking about. My opponents have been able to produce no such expert. So we have evidence there. We have evidence saying that 2/3 of traffic comes from Google, and erasing the data from Google is equivalent to erasing the data from the internet. We have evidence for our second contention saying that Google has approved 42% of the hundreds of thousands of requests from the company themselves. But look at my opponent's case. The first contention that we can't control who posts has one statistic saying that 50% of kids are cyberbullied online. But we have some counter evidence saying that most of cyberbullying is actually private, because of the 7 types of cyberbullying, only 1 or 2 of them will actually ever be seen by anyone else. So how on earth does that statistic matter at all? And of course, their second point, constitutionality, they only cited the Constitution is irrelevant. They have absolutely no evidence to back up any of their case. So it's clear that the negation side has won on evidence as well. And my third and final voting issue is on a contradiction that my opponents had. My opponents said that even with the right to be forgotten, there are still print sources, and that there is no guarantee that this would protect anyone. And because they've said this, they said themselves that because there's no guarantee that erasing records would protect anyone, then all of the benefits that they have suggested have completely gone out the door. If they cannot protect criminals, they cannot protect victims of cyberbullying. If they cannot protect victims of cyberbullying, they cannot protect the ordinary Joes of the world. You, me, opponents admitted that the right to be forgotten cannot protect anyone in addition to the harm it causes, why on earth would you, judge, say that the right to be forgotten should be upheld? Because we have proved that your safety is contingent upon the right to be forgotten being gotten rid of, because we have proved it's not in the public interest for the right to forgotten to be upheld, and because the point of constitutionality has no merit in today's debate, and because victims cannot be protected by the right to be forgotten, which my opponents themselves admitted, it's clear that there's absolutely no reason why you should vote for anyone other than the negation. Thank you.
Okay, is everyone ready?
Go.
Time begins now. We strongly affirm the resolution today, and really, what we're affirming in here in the speech is what exactly what is beneficial for society. Now, as we can see, our own points clearly state how this is beneficial for society. We talked about two things mainly, about how it will be affecting the future later on for these major points that we did bring up, and we also brought up about constitutionality. But first, I'll be going on to refuting the negation side's voting issues, and then moving on to our own voting issues, which really are the reasons for why we, the affirmative team, have won this debate. So let's look at their first issue. It was about connecting to the criteria, about how they themselves were able to connect to utilitarianism better than the affirmative team. However, I'd like to mention that we actually did connect to utilitarianism, which we'll be talking about later on in my own speech. They also mentioned about, in their first voting issue, about how this only affects cyberbullying victims. Well, that's not what we were stating in our case. We gave an example at some point about cyberbullying victims, but we did state about how misinformation or anything can be posted on sites or social network sites on the internet itself. This does not necessarily mean cyberbullying. Misinformation is what we said. We did say this in our first speech. And the second point was that of evidence, and about how apparently they were better with their evidence and they were able to connect to this better. However, we did have to have evidence in our own speech. We did give statistics, and we did give Supreme Court cases, and we did give a lot of evidence, and really they did not have that much evidence really in their speech. So it's not as if their whole speech was filled with evidence and our speech had no evidence at all. We did provide evidence to back up our own points. And the third voter issue was that about how we had a contradiction in our own case. However, I'd like to say that they also did have a contradiction in their own case. For example, in their own contention, they explicitly stated about how people like criminals or terrorists or bad people in the world, if they're arguing for our side, then really they would be erased from people's minds. But then they gave an example about the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and their second speaker actually...
Point of order. I believe that the whole point about criminals being forgotten, it should have been brought up in the member of government speech. Any response to that?
This was brought up in one of the last two speeches. Please continue.
Yeah, so as I was continuing to say, was that they did bring this up and said that it's still in everyone's mind. So really, as you can see, that there is a contradiction with their own case. But anyways, I'll be moving on to our own voter issues. So like I said at the beginning of my speech, we, the affirmative team, did connect to utilitarianism. So let's take a look at the negation team's case. They were just mainly talking about how criminals, bad people, terrorists, they would be making use and taking advantage of the right to be forgotten. But really, if we take the majority of people that can actually be affected by this, isn't that a larger number than the terrorists and criminals in this world? It's not like a majority of people are. We're not saying that that doesn't exist in the world completely, but don't we know that the majority of people usually aren't criminals and terrorists, really? So isn't it better for utilitarianism for our side if we're arguing that the majority of people would have the right to be forgotten, when really they're just mainly arguing about these criminals and terrorists who may be lurking around or be causing harm if they have the right to be forgotten. And really, as you can see, for our second voter issue is that about declarative points, and really what exactly, they were a bit vague with their points, especially in the second speech. They were talking about various things, like I mentioned, the contradiction, and so really we, as the affirmative team, were much clearer for that. But let's take our points. Our first point dealt with that of what? How in a real life situation, information, someone who could be in cyberbullying, or just have misinformation that's posted about them on a site, this can affect them later on in their lives. For example, we talked about colleges and universities and about how a simple Google search or just looking at a social networking page can actually be affecting someone's life later on. It can affect where they go to school for higher education. It can be affecting their job, which in turn totally affects their future, which is why the right to be forgotten really should be valued. Because of this reason alone, for that of someone, a regular person, though they did say that things can be private, apparently it usually happens in chat rooms, it still can be accessed. There are officials, there are higher levels that can actually be accessing this information. It's not completely gone like this data. The internet is a whole having a whole network, so people can actually be seeing this information. So technically, if you can see it, why we're saying this is that it's still there, it still exists. Whereas sometime many years ago it might have been in some other source. Really now anyone can search it. I can search it, someone else can search any information, and it will be available. So really, if something wrongly is posted, or like we were saying, someone could be cyberbullied, or really just anything wrong could be posted, then it's not fair. So for all these reasons, I strongly urge you.
Sorry, Lily, I forgot that I wasn't the one who said Bill.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, because I had like Bill Clinton like in the middle of my throat, so I was like trying to write to Carolyn. I was like, shoot, I said Bill Clinton.
It's all good.
LOL.
So guys, how do you think it
Would
went?
you like to look at the work of art I created during Isha's speech?
Oh, the you, by the way, is referring to Carolyn and not you because you're not cool enough to be in this picture.
Is that your flow?
There's that flow. I had to write next to Carolyn's. I wasn't able to flow too completely, and there's the flow on there, and then there's some stuff on those papers too.
Grace, you need to flow more.
This was a stressful time and I didn't have my markers because I left them out.
I'm sorry. Okay, so how do you guys think it went? Ish. We can record feedback.
Recording feedback.
It's important to record your feedback because at least then you can like be all like, oh.
All right, Ish. All right, one positive, one needs improvement.
One positive
Yes.
is I have a negative
No,
one of
Ish.
Just give your negative feedback.
My negative feedback? Well, I think we kind of messed up about the whole United States thing. Significance connecting to the criteria more. And in my voter speech, I didn't really talk that much about constitutionality, about the whole thing. So
All right, and the positive?
I spoke clearly.
Good job. That's very true. Okay, Mei-Mei.
I guess, a negative is that I got like really confused in the middle. I don't know, I just got really confused and then I didn't get it. I was really confused.
Okay.
And then, my positive, I have a positive.
Yes, you do. Come on. Someone else can help.
Somebody help.
Very persuasive.
So let's see. Let me look at my flow. I've written down what you did.
Grace, your flow.
You know what?
Your flow is cute.
This isn't going to be throwing myself out of Mei-Mei, I don't think.
Grace, dear, we're gonna teach you how to flow after this, okay?
I don't like flowing. Also because I naturally write big. I think I need like those king size.
Luke uses papers about yay big, so
Who's Luke?
Can I
Meredith
read
and I
it
as
and steal all
friends.
this paper?
He's sort of in LA.
Can
That'd be a little
And
difficult.
I have family in LA and they have connection.
They have connection.
Okay, Grace, positive neg.
Alright. I had actually had ideas this round, unlike last one, which is kind of nice. I liked having ideas.
That's good.
I think my drawing being throwing out myself out of manly, surrounded by a swarm of LOLs, kind of sums up how I feel about the rest of the data.
All right. Any negative or needs improvement?
Everything.
Oh.
Okay.
Specifics, please.
That's okay. Let's see. Everything was really disorganized, and I kept on screwing
screwing up and I forgot that I wasn't the one who said Bill Clinton. And everything's without ordering, I have no idea how to say Sajid's name.
Yes, Will, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Because I don't know how to spell it. So for all I know, it's correct.
Okay, and also, let's see, what else is up? Everything was a mess, and I wrote voting issues, and I forgot about voting. I'm still really mad about that. I think I gave Carolyn too many notes. And also, I did flow ride. I'm still kind of mad about that. Let's see what else. Also, I don't even know what's going on with the second point, and also, I didn't like my first speaker, and
I think you did a pretty good job, actually.
so many also.
Like last year, you as first speaker just like did not work, but like this worked. So, all right, Carolyn.
Also, I think it was in there already too, for when I asked this.
Carolyn.
I need to know my stuff.
All right, and what are you gonna do to know your stuff?
Look over the
Sacrifice speech.
Grace.
sacrifice of fruit to Greece.
That is not how you're gonna know stuff, Carolyn.
Okay. Well,
What can you do to improve that?
go over my kids before I next time.
Okay. So you think that would solve that?
It would help.
Help?
Oh, I actually have an idea for you. Since I know that you were trying to put similar to what I do, the thing is I flow into my speech and I go and overstep on my entire speech written out, and it doesn't feel like you have your whole speech like written out like a roadmap sort of thing. I think doing that might help you in knowing what you're just saying and where you're going.
Does that sound like it might help?
So I'll show you the example. See look how black is their points and then blue is my response to that. And then you can see this is what they said, this is what I said, the snapshot.
Okay. And something positive?
Dude, that was really bad.
Something
Well, it's
positive.
gonna give you a judging look until you tell her something positive.
Like there were zombies. Okay.
You have something positive.
I have faith in you. You have something positive to say. Just a question of finding.
Also, don't question my knowledge on cyber. I took an entire unit on that.
Okay.
When
I even made a short film about it. It's like, it was like half an hour though, I'm sorry. We were told to make it 5 minutes and I got too excited about Susie's and fix on.
All right, Carolyn, that positive feedback needs to happen before we move on. Someone else can help. Someone want to help?
Let's see. You had a good contention to you were clear about the contention with the contradiction with like the print sources thing that you brought up is good.
All right. Now for some feedback.
LOL, let's throw it on the building first. It's gonna flip a year.
I will keep it shorter than a year.
Half a year.
What about it?
Never mind. All right, generally, guys, value debate. Value. I heard the word value once. The word societal welfare once.
I think I said it once in my speech.
I forgot about that.
That needs to come up, not just util. Util is the way of measuring how much you achieve the value.
Forget about the value. Oh, yeah, not just about.
You have to mention
No, not just about.
both.
Metaphorically, use that penalty one.
All right. You need to bring up both the value and the criteria, not just criterion. All right.
Criterion, big letters.
Eesh.
Okay, I'm making.
For your first point, Grace, please be quiet. Thank you. I would suggest you bring up stuff like slander as well, not just cyberbullying, like other examples of misinformation. Overall, for your speaking, I noticed you're using the word really a lot, so I would say try to cut down on that, as well as just and what exactly we're saying is. So try to cut down on those like catchphrases. Trust me, no judge would ever notice, but I've seen you debate enough times that I notice. It's just something you can improve on.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Meredith says to try to have a clearer tagline for your first point. She wrote a little feedback on here for you. Let's see. Try to avoid having so many hypotheticals and give us actual like historical examples of it happening in the past or evidence of some sort. Like say, in the case of blank, this was online, this college saw it, didn't want to accept them. Yeah? Or like something that's like hard facts. Let's see. Explain more of what would happen if the universities could just search up their names and find out the information and why it matters that it's not fair. How that's going to hurt our population on the scale of societal welfare. Yeah. If you're going to talk about the Supreme Court case, talk about what it is. Yeah, the constitutionality part. So I think for this debate, you could have argued that it is relevant to be in the United States because Google's main base is in the United States. So thus the relevance of Google's being forced to do it abroad, so it's being contemplated if Google would have to do it here, right? So yes, the law right now is in the EU, that is true, but there's all these Supreme Court cases about privacy. The issue is starting to come up in the United States because Google is based here, right? So you can argue how that is relevant, though I perhaps wouldn't put as much stress on constitutionality. I thought you guys should have addressed more of victims, because victims' reports are on the web, they stay on the web.
I thought you guys were going to bring up revenge porn, and I was just stressing so hard about that because I didn't have a response.
There you go. And then
Okay,
Revenge porn?
Okay, so what
We
happens?
can't talk about revenge porn.
Okay. So what happens is, let's say you have an intimate relationship
No,
with
I know
someone.
what revenge porn is, but we can't talk about that in the page.
We totally can.
No.
It can destroy someone's life, and this is why you shouldn't sex. Okay?
you actually probably can. Just like keep it, don't give names, don't give specifics, but you can talk about it. Just like talk about it, try to talk about it in like non-judgmental way, not too harsh, not too like, I guess emotional appeal is good, but don't overwhelm the judge. Like say that had happened to the judge's daughter. You don't want them to like vote against you because you brought up traumatizing information, right? So I would have said that you would want to bring up stuff like, say a girl was raped at a young age. It made the news. It stays in the news for her entire life. Every single time that she tries to get a job, tries to go to college, whatever. Some actually are. Some actually are. And so then they'll still be able to see. She'll stay the rest of her life, Grace. She'll stay the rest of her life with everyone knowing that she was raped. What kind of history is that? How can you move on if the news is filled with information about how you were raped either when you were little, when you were a teenager, when you were a young adult? You really don't need that on your record your entire life. Other stuff, people who were acquitted of their crimes. Say this ties into the misinformation. There's been a lot of cases recently where people were charged with a crime. The only information that is out there is that they were charged in a description of the crime. They never clarified that the person wasn't guilty. So it looks like they're guilty when they're not. So a lot of that information that just like the actual clarity of it gets lost because people care more about the charges than the decision. That could be brought up a lot. Additionally, people who at a young age did a crime, perhaps not a major crime, and then it sticks with them their entire life. How is that for people moving on and becoming a better person? So they messed up once. That's bad. And then they never get to move on. They never get to go to college. They never get a job. Guess what? They're going to be a criminal the rest of their life too because they can't get a job, right? So you want to bring up more of that kind of stuff, I'd say.
Could you also tie that to the fact that more minorities are prosecuted in like minor crimes like drug busts and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we were gonna say something about the cycle of poverty, but we didn't want to accidentally say something offensive. I don't know.
Yeah. All right,
But
so...
people only judge you internally, it's fine.
Okay. Overall, I'd say if you're try to go through your points just once, so like to keep it straighter. I know you had extra time, so like just like use it as you're going through. Overall, good speaking, good eye contact. Try to keep your paper a little lower, but good speaking, good content. Grace,
Why me? When it going left or right?
because I go in order of speech. All right. Good roadmap. I would say, okay, so you said it's mostly private. What about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of these things?
You don't even have one.
No, I didn't.
So,
But it's
yeah,
public.
Lily, I don't think you know. Just kidding. Okay, when you say most private, are you referring to the mostly private companies point? Or are you referring to the cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying. Because they were saying misinformation, but the thing is, all of these
My
things
point
also
was that,
could
okay, I
happen.
really want to get into it because I knew I didn't have time. But the majority of the types of cyberbullying are in the forms of electronic communication, whether in chat rooms,
I know.
private chat rooms.
Okay, Grace. The thing is, but you need to address, like, try to preempt that and say, like, this exists, but that's not what's happening, right? Because otherwise they are going to know, like, that kind of
Only
thing.
one type of denigration is actually public.
Grace, you know the whole sexting thing you brought up? You know how that doesn't just stay with the person they sent it to? Yeah, same thing. AKA, it might start out private, but it might not
Oh, and
stay
you
private.
address the fact that it often gets spread to
Yeah.
images and like, okay.
Right. So I would say for that one, though it's definitely very, very good that you addressed all the different parts of the point, I'd also address the overall misinformation part.
Okay.
Right? Let's see. Try to cut down on rhetorical questions and hypotheticals a little bit if you can. It sounds like if you're asking me, the judge, to like think about my own opinion on it, you're giving the judge too much power. You're giving the judge too much power to be biased by their own opinions. So you want to tell me what to think, not ask me what I think.
Okay. Oh, is this response to the college one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. I thought the no do-overs in real life was an interesting idea. The only problem is internet, it stays there written down. They're not going to go through and interview people who knew you when you were a kid to ask you what you did when you were a kid.
That's why I brought up the example of an industry thing. Like you scrub once in industry and everybody kind
Right.
of knows.
Right, so that was a good example, but you do want to try to address the fact that,
Yeah, I wanted
Like-
to bring up the Monica Lewinsky thing then, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not the thing.
let's see. Good job having very detailed refutations. That was really good. Let's see. I'd say good job bringing up the Americentric idea. The problem is, like, it can apply in the United States as well, from what I was telling them. I would say address the actual thing of it being constitutional. Address, like, the right of people to have this knowledge. The right of freedom of speech. The right of people
Okay,
to...
so with that, I should see freedom of speech contradict the First Amendment.
Yeah, I would say talk more, like, debate them on their own terms. You can address and say, one, this is an EU law that doesn't affect it, but say the judge doesn't agree with you. You want to have a backup plan.
Okay, so the backup would be that people also have the right.
Yeah, so you want to contradict it with another amendment and say,
that the
this-
censorship is not.
yeah, and say, like, yeah, exactly. That's not democracy, right?
But so I guess that was, can I ask you, what would be a better tagline for a second contention? Are you getting there?
I will get there, yes. Let's see. For the first part, it was good mentioning, like, pedophiles, terrorist criminals, etc. Only thing is, if people start thinking about the victims, right? Because the victims' records are on record too. So you want to try to preempt that, and like,
but by saying that victims have more protections in the
Yeah.
law in college.
Yeah.
Okay.
so you want to make sure people don't start thinking, okay, so there's criminals, but then what about all the victims, right? Because you don't want to give them too much room to start like thinking about stuff. They're not supposed
Okay,
to
so
be
you know
biased.
before I'm covering all my bases.
Yeah. People are supposed to be biased, but you know as well as I do, that does not
I
happen.
am always constantly biased.
I meant judges, but okay.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was like, yes.
Well, it's true.
I
Okay.
should not be proud to say that.
All right.
Hey, Carolyn.
All right. I would suggest have an instance of when it was bad that something was erased, not just like saying generally that it
Oh,
could
that's
be erased.
hypotheticals, hard
Yeah,
evidence.
yeah. Hard evidence. Yeah. So for the taglines, I think they need to be more distinct because safety of everyone and public interest sound pretty similar. For the second one, I would say you're talking more about democracy,
Okay.
which honestly sort of contradicts your reputation about EU because they aren't all democracies. what you would want to be talking about there is the right of the people to have a say in the information. That makes sense?
This is what I wanted to read.
I'm sorry, dear.
What
It's good practice for you, Grace.
Okay, okay, it's a picture of this
All right. So I'd say you want to have an example. It's good that you have these quotes, but you also need either statistics or historical examples to back it up. That person,
More hard evidence.
yeah, that person could just be saying that. I mean, we know he's an expert.
He is the culture secretary
I know.
of Britain, Lily.
He's
Let's
an
say
expert.
You, the
That's-
culture secretary of Britain.
That's better than some random person.
Yeah, Lily Hackworth, who is like 16 years old.
All right.
Ew, 16 years old.
Grandma.
Right. Guys,
Lily
guys.
Hackworth, a local grandmother.
All right. So you need to explain more about how the 42% of stuff being accepted matters and like how that's relevant to your point. Overall, pretty good speaking. You started mumbling a little at the beginning and end, but overall, very good explanations, good organization. All right, Mei-Mei. Okay. Overall, I'd say a little overuse of like personalizing everything, saying like our information's on the internet. This is happening to us.
Stop saying this.
Yeah.
I feel very personal.
All right, so you're talking about how it can't ever be truly private. That is definitely true. The thing is, it's not really just that officials can go deeper and find it, but more that stuff gets retweeted, resent,
You know how.
forwarded.
No, we don't do that forward thing.
Emails get forwarded, text messages
Lily
get forwarded.
forwards the evidence. No one else uses emails or primary form communication.
I use
LOL.
I use email.
Okay,
You received
guys,
my email?
guys. I think I
If you
did.
now see Emily's email too much, you answer mine all the time.
All right, guys. Let's see. Try to connect the 50+% of teens being cyberbullied with the misinformation and the bad effects. Because it's true they're cyberbullied, but you want to talk about what happened afterward.
Our opponent said 35%.
Wait.
Whoops.
Whatever.
Wait, because 50+% seems kind of high.
Lots of people are cyberbullied.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So for the part about the digital footprint and how like colleges can look at it, I would say you want hard evidence again, like saying that they do that. I mean, like I know they do. Question is whether your judge does and wants to believe you.
Digital footprint. I know all about this.
Yeah.
No, I actually do. It's
Good job going back through and like refuting the different parts that Grace picked apart. That's really
I
good.
was so confused during that speech. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, just refute all the ideas, refute all the stuff she brings up. That's really good. So you want to, since she was attacking how there's no reason for the internet to be different, you really need to stress why it's different and how it's different. Let's see. Again, try to avoid rhetorical questions. I would say, yeah, same thing I was saying to Ish about the whole constitutionality point. If you can find something like UDHR or some sort of the EU rules that say the same thing, you could bring up all of them and be like, this is clearly a common value among all the countries, not just the United States. Really good questions, by the way.
I took a question.
I don't know, it was during one of their speeches, but I wrote that in your column. Speaking of questions, don't let them interrupt you in the middle of a sentence. Finish your idea and then answer your question. Try to have a few more numbers. I would say you're talking about how far greater number aren't criminals. For that, I would say bring up the victims. Because for every criminal, there's a victim. So you're hurting all these people too. Grace. Thank you.
Yesterday, my handwriting was really nice.
Good job. Alright. Let's see. Guys. It was true you did like say there's no guarantee for like how like no concern of like not knowing about to Grace's question. You want to make sure that your answers to questions don't contradict anything you've said, right? Let's see. I would say explain why and how it's in greater public interest to uphold this right? Because you're saying that it's more in our public interest to do so, but why? So bring up more ideas for that. But overall, good speaking. Watch your movement of your arms and swaying back and forth a little, but good eye contact and good content. Carolyn, for the beginning of your speech, like your intro, you need to watch mumbling, your speed, and enunciation, right? So you need to speak very clearly, make sure the judge can understand you, especially right at the beginning. And you need to be very, very persuasive. So convince me as the judge to believe you. Even if you're completely saying things that aren't true, I should believe you anyways, right? Even if I'm completely biased against you, I should still believe you because you're that persuasive, right? Right. For when people ask you questions, try to start responding right away. Even if your partner's giving you an answer, just like try to address it as best you can by just like talking until they give you something to say, right? So then it doesn't sound like you just like don't know what to say. And also the answer to that question was totally not connected and I did not understand. So you need to make
What was the question and answer?
It was talking something about cyberbullying. Oh, how cyberbullying was always private, and you just listed like 3 types of cyberbullying that were like intimidation, harassment.
Yeah.
That did not answer the question.
Oh, sorry. I was listening to different types of cyberbullying that were private and
Yeah.
stayed private. Sounds like.
Yeah, so Carolyn, you need to interpret her answer that she gives you and respond to the question. Also, so you brought up just how it was mostly private, but they already refuted that. So you need to refute their refutation of that, right? Because that's already been refuted off the flow. Let's see. Yeah, again, the whole hole in your case, bringing up how culprits can escape, well, victims too. It sounded like you didn't really address the colleges part, which I think you needed to because that was pretty important. And the whole like memory being short. It sounded like the whole affair with Clinton, you jumped right into your second contention, but that was part of the first contention. So you need a number and make it clear where you are. Also, if you're going to say an example, I would suggest introducing it with like your idea, your argument first, and then the example so we actually know where you're going, right?
The example is very relatable to parent judges.
It is, but you want to say, first, my opponent said that people's memory is short and that they don't remember anything. However, clearly this is not true. And then you give the example, right? Let's see.
Lily Hackworth said that we were really
All right, Carolyn. Okay. The part about you saying like they're already criminals, that did not make sense. I was incredibly confused. You also said like the evidence exists and you benefit by it. I was also confused by that. You need to explain what you're talking about and make it really clear. You need to explain the contradiction more. It's possible that there was one, but you need to make sure the judge understands what it was. Try not to be fazed by their questions. And again, try not to rely too much on your partner to give you answers because you need to be able to talk while they're trying to give you an answer. Also, what were you doing during Mei-Mei's speech? Both of you guys.
I was like,
We're
oh my
trying
god,
to come up
look,
with
here's a
something.
reputation.
No, but like that one, like before you guys burst out laughing, what did you? Okay.
I think it was a pun. Do you remember?
Okay. Anyways, Carolyn, know the pronunciation if you're gonna quote someone, please. It makes you sound a bit more reputable. You need to say why it you're talking about victim records, you need to talk about why and you need to explain. Also, if you're gonna say terrorists have asked Google, well, has Google let them? I mean, yes, Google has allowed some people to erase, but I'm pretty sure they haven't let terrorists erase their criminal records off the internet.
They have.
All right, then you need to say that, right? Oh, really? Really? Am I gonna believe you? No.
All the information is hidden from you, Lily.
See? So I'm not gonna believe you if you don't give me evidence. You can just say terrorists have asked. I'll be like, okay. Did Google say yes? Did Google say no?
Google always says yes.
Google says yes apparently 42% of the time, according to one of you guys. I said 42.
I said 43 and I was like, no.
All right.
That is wrong, Lily.
Let's see. So you need to actually refute their refutation, not just talk about your point again. So like talk about how it doesn't matter that the majority of the population is criminals because it affects everyone. Try to connect again to the value. Oh, wait, the part you just like said for your second contention, 42% of them were accepted. So what? What does that mean? What are you even talking about? You need to explain that, right? Explain the blocking out competitors' links. That could be pretty good, but for the fact that I have no idea what you're talking about at this point. Overall,
I was so confused.
Oh my god, they dropped that.
okay, guys,
I didn't know.
try to connect more to the value. Talk about significance. Try to have, when you're speaking, a little more fluidity. Keep talking clearly. Keep talking, even if you like aren't quite sure what to say. Make it sound like you do. But overall, good content and good job getting through everything. Right, Grace. Really good job with the voter speech. You've done like 1 or 2 of those in your entire debate career, so that was quite good.
Also, like,
Good job, Grace.
Yeah, so good organization. For connecting to UTO, you need to connect to the value too.
I totally
What was
forgot
your
their
value?
value. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like note to self: do not forget their
yeah.
value.
So you were saying that like pedophiles affect everyone, but you need to like make it clear that they don't literally always affect everyone. They just can't
Okay, they can't. So,
affect everyone.
I was like, man, I get really need to get utilitarians because I realized I never said utilitarians in my name in my first speech. I just kind of said everybody.
Yeah. Okay. So you also said, Grace. So you said like for their first contention that it was like, just the victims that were like affected. Please don't say
Oh,
that.
I did the people don't matter if they didn't. Did
Yeah. Please don't say that, Grace. I literally wrote winces on my paper. Don't do that. But Grace, really good job addressing their case and your case. A lot of people just address their own. You made sure to address both. That's really good. You brought up the EU law part again, but the thing is, Carolyn didn't really address that. So it's like a bit more tenuous on the whole. You guys were better on it. For the evidence, I'd say talk less about that you had it and more that means you can guarantee these significant harms, benefits, whatever it is, right? See, I still didn't quite understand the contradiction. You need to
Can I
like,
explain it to you, or is it just one of those I don't understand it? It doesn't matter.
It's just one of those.
I think I get it now, but your explanation
Was lacking.
was a little lacking, yeah. It was, I definitely understood more of it than I had in Carolyn's, but a little, perhaps from the repetition, because I'd already heard it once. Hearing it a second time tends to help, but try to develop it a little more. Okay, bye, Mei-Mei.
Thanks, guys.
You will see me tomorrow.
I will indeed.
Right,
Bye.
Bye.
good personal connection, like to the judge.
I need first.
Yes, you did. Good eye contact, and then like just
nothing written on my paper.
try to explain a little bit more for the contradiction type stuff, okay?
Alright.
E. Oh, this is a comment for everyone that I thought you guys could have brought up.
I made a note on the back of my notebook.
Good. Articles in the newspaper can be retracted if they're inaccurate. Thus, that could be extended to mean articles on the internet, if they're inaccurate, should be retracted, right? So you guys could bring that up for an argument of why this is right, because they already do it in newspapers, right?
Publishing a correction is the same thing as removing an article entirely, though.
They have actually, like, they sometimes do, like, retract an article and say, like, this article was inaccurate, like, disregard it. I mean, like, not everyone sees it, but, like,
I know. I've also seen magazines like, oh, this caption of this photo.
also no one ever looks at corrections, honestly.
I know.
What is even the point?
Wait, what photo?
Anyways,
So dark.
Eesh.
No, it's okay.
Again with the really and what exactly we're saying, try to avoid that. Your roadmap needs to come before you start talking about beneficial for society. I was a little confused where you're going with that. Yeah.
From now on, I'll write down my notebook every time Lily gives me a compliment.
Sounds good.
And
So
so
you're
then when I
talking
feel
about,
upset, I can help a little more.
how it was like the point was not just about cyberbullying, but the thing is Mei-Mei had mostly been talking about that, Grace had mostly been talking about that. So that needs to come up earlier in Mei-Mei's speech that it's not just cyberbullying, right? Let's see.
It made me feel victimized.
Alright, this is common for both of you guys. Random evidence does not help you. You need to explain said random evidence, logic out, and add reasoning to said random evidence.
Why can't we just put out random evidence on it?
I believe Meredith's analogy yesterday was French fries and salt. The salt being the evidence and the
I'm
French
pretty sure
fries
you can
being
just
the
be straight up.
reasoning.
Lily, love it. Has anyone ever told Meredith that analogies are not her thing?
Oh yeah, so
Alright, guys, let me finish. Girls.
I know. And it's just like,
no,
she's like, she's like, it's a pie without frosting. Pies don't have frosting.
I think she said a cupcake, but
she said that pie.
No, she said the
The
pie,
apple pie.
and then we fixed it for her by saying cupcake.
Wait. So next week, the article restaurant was looking for a rebuttal. It said, oh yeah, and victims, like people who are revealed are victimized for the rest of their life. And I was like,
okay.
I feel victimized too.
So for your refutation to their third voter issue, you said like they had a contradiction too, but you want to also explain how you didn't. Because you don't just want to say, oh yeah, both of us had contradictions, oh well. Especially if you're going to argue against them for that same thing. So you want to say how you didn't. Again, yeah, value needs to be connected to. You're talking about how the majority aren't criminals. That's true, but it also affects everyone else. Again, try to not ask me what I think, but tell me what to think. You don't want to give the judge too much power. Also for that, I'd say try to address the rest of the case as well. Like go through all the other points and connect that to the value and util. Let's see. Yeah, again with the people being able to find out the information, it's less the issue of officials digging it up and more that it doesn't stay private. But overall, really good speaking and good eye contact. So good job. Nice, Grace. All right, Grace. Partner survey.
oh yes.
Actually,
And I'm
let's,
gonna ask your help on filling this out, just like I did during lunch.
let's not because I'm your partner. Let's also go downstairs.